So, Mark, when you had reached out to us with the stonewalling issue, you had actually joined a different marriage help program where you actually saw some really good results with that in the beginning. Uh, can you talk a little bit? So ultimately, you found us, so that means that the results weren't lasting, or it didn't end up creating the results or the desired outcome that you wanted it to create. Can you talk just a little bit about what kind of program that was and what were the wins that you had, and why did that ultimately not work out for you?
So I eventually found a Christian seminar. It wasn't face to face, so it was just kind of online. But it had some things I thought were really good. Some things that actually I was able to reach out, and she reciprocated, and we got to talking a little bit. And and in those moments, it was like, okay, if I finally got something going here, and
Okay.
I've got an opening. I'm just going and pushing, and I'm trying to show her like, hey, I'm the same guy who fell in love with you all those years ago, and we'd get along great for a little bit, and then it would just all fall apart again, and I would get blocked again, and I couldn't reach her again, and it was, man, it was hard.
That Christian seminar that you did, so that was just like wasn't that just like a weekend thing or a 3-day thing?
It
Okay.
was.
It seems like that so many men deal with the same issue, that and you got to experience the confirmation bias. So she was biased against you. You did some things, and I'm all about the Christian organizations helping. I used to actually work through a Christian organization through a nonprofit when I started as a marriage coach. But what I found is, even in that program, when I was teaching at that capacity, is that if I can teach you some scripts and some things that are going to work, and they're going to have really good successes, and they might work so good. And I actually teach some of that also in the beginning of the Divorce Stoppers program. I understand, especially in a long-term relationship like where you're at, where you have mortgages, car payments, all this other stuff, that it's not just a relationship. You have the businesses that go with that. And the longer a separation endures, the harder it is to reconcile, because it can create financial impacts on the relationship that are a strain, that even if you do get back together, now you have to deal with that. Maybe you have to deal with two leases or two mortgages or another car payment, additional things that you wouldn't have other had if we could restore the relationship a lot faster. And so,
Yep.
even though I don't want anybody to just get back together as a quick fix, I do want people to get back together quickly, and then let's continue working on it until it's a permanent way of being, to make sure that you don't end up in this situation again. It sounds like that you did the norm, though. A lot of the men that reach out to us and they find me and they do an enrollment phone call, I often find out the same thing, that they read some kind of book, they did something, they tried some things, they had some wins, but when you have a wife or a long-term relationship partner that has confirmation bias against you, it's in the back of her mind. And so if she's moved this way, and in your case, your girlfriend, or your partner, she had completely stonewalled you. So she had extreme bias against you. And you would get some wins, right? And then it's for almost every relationship, it's not about the wins, it's about, is he going to mess up? And they'll test you to see if your change is real or if you're just reading some scripts. And you experience exactly what I'm talking about. You had all of these wins, you did all of these things, you were doing it perfect, but then she does one little thing that triggers the old you, and you're confirming her bias against you, because you blow up and that pushes her all the way back. Not only does it push her back to where she was before, but it pushes her further. She has more confirmation that the bias I have against him needs to stay there, because it's a protection mechanism. It's not even like she's a bad person or she has a bad heart. She's just like, I've been dealing with this shit for the last few years, and now I know that he's confirmed again that even if we got back together, he's going to go back to the old him. So, so that was so you guys got separated in October of last year, and you did the Christian program in what, like the end of November, first part of December?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay. And then you had some wins with that, but ultimately that's when her communication, she triggered you. You had a little blow up, and she was like, that's when she actually started using the divorce word, right?
She did. She talked a lot about. I mean, when we were able to talk, usually it was about like, "Hey, we're done. We're over. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm gonna find a lawyer. We're gonna get a divorce." And that was really probably my lowest point. Right there, especially at the end of December, the holidays, not having her around was. I mean, it was a rough go. A
Gotcha.
really rough go.
So you found us and right before Christmas and started the program. So can you kind of talk about how was the Divorce Stoppers program similar to what you went through with the weekend retreat for the Christian program, but also how was it different? How did your wins start stacking up to the point that it gave her an understanding that maybe this is real? Like, I know before you were kind of like a bulldozer trying to take the wall down to take back your relationship with good intentions, but
Yes.
this program kind of helps you understand that that wasn't the way to do it. How did you start taking down that wall? What was the change? Like with working with divorce stoppers?
So, I mean, probably one of the first biggest things working with you guys was the daily calls. I mean, Monday through Friday, I was talking with you, you were talking with me, you were encouraging me, you were giving me the feedback that I needed. And it wasn't just a couple of days or a weekend or somebody would be like, hey, you need to do this and you need to be a better person and, make these changes. Like just having that immersive, 5 days and then the next week and then the next week and just, pushing it so it wasn't just like a, hey, it's a thing, you should try this and things will be good. The immersion of the everyday schedule was really the first big thing that pushed me to shift my mindset and make it less of like, well, I'm fighting to take down these bricks while you're fighting to put them up and making it a fight, even though I'm trying like fighting with you to get back together, which was it seems like that's the thing to do was to push. And working with guys, I just realized how wrong I was. So that was the first thing was the immersion. And then like with the weekend retreat, like it was great, but the weekend it's over, and then I'm cut off from that, and there was nobody else to talk to, and I was just back in my own stuck in my own ways. Having access to you guys, whenever I needed to schedule something, I could, even if it wasn't our daily, meeting. And if I needed something, on those off times, you guys were there for me 100%. And that was a huge relief and feeling that, I'm not in this alone. I'm not making these mistakes and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I could talk to people. Um, and then probably one of the last big things was the fact that in those, one-on-one calls, I mean, technically they weren't really one-on-one, but you would invite everybody in the programs to come in and listen, so it wasn't just me having the same problems. I'm not the only one, dealing with some of these things. So,
Yeah.
hearing that and hearing other people's stories, and then, a lot of times they'd ask questions. I was like, oh gosh, why didn't I think of that? Or, hey, I wanted to ask that. And I mean, just having that community and that camaraderie, I mean, I can't even describe how great that was to not be alone in this
Yeah.
throughout the play.
Yeah, and then also, so what Mark is talking about for all of our viewers that are watching this is, in addition to our daily immersive modules where we're covering like the different steps, is that we're teaching it pretty much the opposite of any other program that's out there. So
Mhm.
what I think probably the reason that you're pointing out like how you stopped working on it is because I teach these modules from a perspective of working at the relationship is actually what's not working. When you guys fell in love, when you fell in love with your girlfriend or you fell in love with your long-term relationship partner or your wife, you you weren't working at the relationship to fall in love. You were just hanging out, having a good time. You were focused on your mission as a man who God's called you to be and just having fun with
Yes.
her, and you guys fell in love with each other, and that's what creates love. That's why it's called falling. And so in this program, we have to like retrain your brain to say, listen, dummy, working on this. Like there's programs that say
Oh, yeah.
you gotta take this hard, grueling path, and it's gonna take 6 months or a year to go up the mountain. And that's not the problem. That can work, but it's going to take a
Yeah.
year to work. So we want to
Yeah.
create.
How many times did you have to tell me that before it finally sunk in?
Well, that's where we come from, and that's the reason we do the immersive daily calls. And then if there's something
Hmm.
that you're not getting or it hasn't come up yet, and you want faster results, that's why all of our clients today have unlimited access to schedule calls with me. And where you had talked about they're not one on one, yes, it is a one on one call. It's just you and I. You're asking your question, and I'm specifically answering the question. But everybody in the program loves that we make those calls available for the entire
Yes.
every one of the clients that's in it, because it's like you said, what you were thinking that you should have asked like last week or
Hmm.
2 days ago, and now you schedule a call with me, and then you forgot you were also struggling with this, but somebody else asked that same question. You're like, oh wow, I'm so glad they asked that, because I meant to ask that. But in addition to your relationship, you also have a job and family member and parents and sometimes kids and sports and activities. And so
Hmm.
you in order to really be attractive to your spouse, we call it spice: spiritual, physical, intellectual, your character and your emotional attractiveness. For you to actually increase in attractiveness in all of those areas, if you just start focusing solely on working on the relationship, climbing some mountain that's going to be this grueling work, that's going to
Not going to get you.
it's not going to get you there. And if it does get you there, it's going to take a long freaking time. And so
Hmm.
I teach it from the perspective of stop working on this and let's get you to start thinking the opposite of how you're thinking now. That means that if you start thinking that in this scenario that she's presenting me with, you feel like you should do this, but almost always you should actually do the opposite. And because working on the relationship is what's not working. So we're not in the process. There's a saying out there: anything worth having is worth, it's no pain, no gain. And
Right, worth fighting for, all that silly gobbledygook.
and you know what? That actually is a very wise statement. When I'm going to the gym, I press,
Hmm.
I pump, I work on my muscles, they grow, and that increases in my spice, my physical attractiveness, right? But
Hmm.
when it comes to emotions and the human brain and the human psychology, when you're dealing with the obstinate spouse or long term relationship partner where they stonewalled you and put up that brick wall, and it's if you try to tear the wall down, all you're going to do is thicken the wall and make it higher. And the way that you
Yep.
do that is you stop working on the relationship and you realize there's no mountain you have to climb. You're already at the top of the freaking mountain, full of your pride. You're up there, and nobody wants to be up there with you. She's decided that
Yep.
I think I'm going to walk down to the river where everything's peaceful, drink me a cold drink from the spring, and just let this idiot stay up there by themselves, because like I'm done with that. And so,
Yeah, I couldn't figure out how to get down to her.
and you're throwing a rope down there trying to lassie her up like a heifer and pull her up with you, and all that's going to do is make her pull harder. So what you have to do is stop working on the relationship and just slowly start walking down the mountain to the river where she's at. And what I call that is emotional safety. So she needs to see that this guy that's up here that thinks he's all that up on the pedestal on the top of the mountain, she wants to see that if I look his way, I see he's coming down to me and understanding my feelings. And if I bark something up there at him to see if to test him, because women will do that, I'm going to see if he is going to will he still stay steady and continue walking towards me. And by the way, each step you take towards her, a brick comes down. They just start
Hmm.
falling. You don't have to tear them down.
Yes.
They just come down. They fall one by one. She's looking up at you. You're walking down to where she's at. And with each easy step that you're taking, and by the way, your brain initially doesn't like it. That doesn't make it hard. It's the easiest freaking thing you'll ever do. But as you're taking those steps down, initially your brain's like, oh, this feels like I shouldn't be taking this step. I want
It
her.
feels so
Yeah,
counterintuitive.
yeah, I selfishly want to pull her back. But as you're taking the steps down, with each step, it becomes a way of thinking and ultimately a way of being. So when she does come back and decide to stay on the mountain with you, it, you know what? It's so crazy that so many couples, when their wife or their long-term relationship partner does come back and they reunite back in the same household, it's astonishing to me of the women that want to go through the program also. They're like, I want to learn how to walk down the river. I want to learn how to be the safe person to talk to. And so
Mm-hmm.
they want to go through the program with you. But what were you going to say about that?
So yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, fighting the wall is not the way to go, even though that's all I was doing was trying to fight, and every time she stonewalled me, she would stonewall so much harder. I mean, it was so frustrating, getting those small wins and then being shut down again. It hurt more than anything. And once, you know, like you talked about, once you guys showed me how to get, right with my spiritual self and, started working on what I can do for my physical well-being, how I can increase, my emotional satisfaction with myself and things of that nature. It really helped me get down off my high horse and come, like you said, come down to the river tour. And when I finally got there, the wall wasn't there anymore, and I didn't have to try to tear those bricks down.
Right.
And you know 2 weeks ago we moved back in together, and it's been wonderful ever since. And actually we're doing the course again, and she wants to do it with me, which is we're getting to do something. This is like the first thing we're getting to do together, being back together. And I can't ask for a better outcome, like just to be doing stuff together again. It's amazing. It's absolutely life changing.
Yeah, that's what creates soulmates is when you guys are actually on the same page, and now you
Mhm.
actually have it's I talk about this a lot, but when when we go to get a driver's license, we have to like they want to know all this stuff. So depending on where you're at, you have to take a defensive driving course. You have to go and study this
Mhm.
book forever. Then you have to go take a written exam, and then they want to actually take a test drive to make sure you can actually drive. But I've been married twice, have an amazing marriage now. But I remember both times when I went to get a marriage license at the same office, they didn't ask me if I'd been through this and studied and take a written test and a driving test. They didn't ask me
Mhm.
like, "Are you sure you don't want to drive her around the block first and let her drive you around the block and ride in the car and make sure that you take
Oh
the
yeah,
right
there's
time?"
no manual.
They just said they said, is she your cousin? I'm like, no. They're like, here, sign here. I'm like, okay.
You're good.
Nobody ever taught us how do you communicate, like the whole book, Men Are From Mars and Venus or whatever. That's probably a good read. That'll probably even help you going through these modules. But we kind of teach, something similar and get people out of the mindset of if I can just have this lifelong relationship where I'm not working on the relationship, but I am
Not
making
making
a,
it hard.
yeah, it's not going to be hard. That way you stay falling in love. But what we're doing is transitioning your mind into what you should have. I mean, actually, I wish this course that we teach was taught in you have to take that in your junior or senior year in high school because everybody needs to learn how do I communicate with the opposite sex like an adult. Hey guys, I want to share something with you. If you're still watching the video at this stage, I'm assuming that you're getting at least some benefit from the content. I want to give you something else. I'm offering right now a free masterclass, and at the end of that masterclass, I'm giving you an opportunity to apply to work with me. The website to do that is denvergriffin.com/masterclass. And if you're enjoying some of this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm posting YouTube videos daily right now to give you free content in order to help you save your marriage. And I want you to be notified as those videos become available in real time. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, we learned that from our parents, and 99% of the time, it's not ever going to be right. It's not going to be. And so many things have changed too. Like in our parents' day, like my dad, I never saw my dad as a kid. My dad was always freaking working. And guess what? That worked because the way he loved my family was working. But now we're in a different culture where women and wives, their income can be as much as men's, and in a lot of places, in a lot of zip codes, even more.
More.
Women can go out and find their own money. So I get so many men in the program, they're like, well, I do all this stuff for her. I'm like, what do you do for her? Okay, well, I work and I help around the house some. Okay, well, she works too, and she's bringing in the same income. And
Mm-hmm.
and even if she's a stay at home mom, she can go get a job making just as much money as you a lot of times. Okay, and if you're making like this massive amount of wealth, then she can just sue your ass for alimony. She's good. So she doesn't really going to value that as something that's contributing to the marriage. She wants
Yeah.
somebody that is emotionally safe, where she's like, whatever I'm dealing with, the goals and dreams that I have in my life. So, we want to say that like from a Christian perspective, I'm a Christian. And so many Christians get this wrong, that two halves become one whole. That is like, if you're a Christian, that's from the enemy, because it's not two halves becoming one whole. It's two wholes becoming one household. And what that means is she has dreams also. And if her dreams aren't in a line with your dreams, is it safe for her to tell you that? Now, if she decides that, okay, I just don't want to work anymore and I want to stay home, and that doesn't make sense financially, and you guys are in agreement with that, you have to come to an
Mm-hmm.
agreement. Like, it's common sense. But is it safe for her to share how she's feeling? And that's not common sense. If she comes to you with a problem, so as you go through the program, all the men are surprised to tell me that as they stop working on the relationship, that's when she tests. And the way that she tests is, she'll see you coming down the mountain a little bit, and she's like, I wonder if this is real. He's walking where I've always wanted
Mm-hmm.
him to walk, towards me. Is this
Yep.
is this real? So she's going to go find your hot button and jump up and down on it like a kid walking across piano keys. And now that you don't have the same mission, and our goal is to save the relationship. I mean, that's our goal. But because the mission changes from saving the relationship to, what is my mission as a man? What am I called to do? How do I increase my
Mm-hmm.
attractiveness for myself, which is ultimately the right thing to do by her? As she sees that you're more attractive and that you're walking closer to her, she's going to test you to see, is he going to shove me away? And so she'll always come to you with, for example, a lot of men, their wife haven't said that they want a divorce yet, but they go into the program. The wife says, I want a separation. And now all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden he's walking on water and he's walking toward her. Women, a lot of times, will go so far as to look up and say, oh, guess what? I've decided that I want to go ahead and get a lawyer. I want to get a divorce. The old you would have just went, that would have been like the big red button of yours that she would have pushed. And
Yes.
the old you would have been like, oh my God, like, I got to go back to working on this again. The new you is going to say, gosh, I really prefer that we stay married. Um, and I hate that, but I've been doing a lot of thinking. And I can totally understand why you would feel that way. And then you just shut up. My
Yeah.
preference is that we stay reconciled. But some of the things that you've said, I actually have tried to see it from your point of view and your perspective. And if you feel like you need that, I understand. I don't want that. I mean, you don't want to be an a-hole about it and be like, fine, if you want that, I'm on board. I still prefer that we stay married, but I get it. And you're your own person. And that's going to shock her. What are you going to say about that?
Yeah, so that's exactly where we started before I found y'all. It was, you know, a battle to be in the relationship, and the harder I fought, the more she would stonewall me, and then it was separation, and I fought harder to try to be together, and then it was divorce, and yeah, you guys really taught me like it's not us versus each other, it's us versus the problem, and I lost sight of that trying to fight for the relationship and not solve it together.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, as we were talking about earlier, I like that you shared that. As we pace through these modules, and Tony Robbins calls it immersion. So we're like immersed in this every single day. That way, it's not just some phrases that you're memorizing. It becomes actually a new way of being, a new way of thinking. because yes, there's urgency and we want to reunite you as fast as possible, because in long-term relationships, there's the financial aspects that go with it and further damage could be done. But the goal is not to fake it till you make it. I mean, in the beginning, it's not real for anybody because it's the
Yeah.
opposite of how you're feeling. But the goal is to make it real, to make it lasting, lifelong, and permanent change that's so attractive that not only does it attract her back like a moth to a flame, uh, that is something that is so attractive that she wants to be like that, like in your example. At what point in the program, so we do the 35 modules in addition to the one-on-one calls that you can schedule. At what point did you have an aha moment where your brain actually was okay with not working on this, and instead of lasting her and pulling her up the mountain, that you started walking down toward her? When did your brain feel comfortable taking these easy steps down the mountain to her? When did your brain say, wow, maybe this is the opposite of what I feel I should do? But when did your brain say, this is working and I freaking can't believe it? I'm not even working on it and I'm just here having a
Mhm.
good time and in a good mood and I'm happy as I'm watching the bricks crumble. When did it dawn on you that these bricks are just falling down? Yeah, I'm going to give you an example. I live in the Caribbean part of the year, and I have
Mhm.
a brand new golf cart seat that, for whatever reason, my neighbors splashed some chlorine on it when the wind blew or something. I don't even know what happened, but for some reason, that back seat, I thought I was going to have it replaced. Right? Like, I mean, I scrubbed the hell out of it. I had a guy come over, two men washing it. I'm like, that's expensive. I don't want to buy a new golf cart seat just because it has some mildew on it, and I could not get it off. I tried household bleach. And I'm like, this is crazy. So I was getting ready to order a new seat. I was at Home Depot and I found this stuff called Zap. And I'm not even joking. I was just going, it said mildew remover. It was on an end cap or I wouldn't even notice it. I purchased this.
Mhm.
I'm not even joking. I sprayed this stuff on there. I read the instructions and it has some type of higher power bleach in it, whatever. The bottom line is I was getting ready to trash this golf cart seat and I had worked my rear end off trying to get this off because I did not want to replace it. I sprayed this stuff on and just let it set for like 30 seconds and then I'm like, it's lightening up, and then at the 2 minute mark when it said rinse it off, it was a brand new golf cart seat. There was no work. And I kind of thought to myself, this is exactly like the program that I've created. Like,
Yep.
even when I sprayed it on, I literally, my brain said, you need to get a scrubber or a magic eraser and some gloves and scrub that in. Like, my brain said, this is not going to work unless you work. I
Mhm.
sprayed it on and just watched it happen. No work. And I was like, this is exactly like my program. I got to share this story. But when did your brain say it's okay to not scrub it?
Oh gosh, that was probably about the middle of the third week where I became conscious that I was not struggling anymore with reaching out and fighting and trying to like smash my head in those bricks to take them down. It was, it's not that I wasn't working. It was I'd finally started redirecting my efforts you know, into all the layers of spice, the spiritual, the emotional, the intellect, all those flavors really were starting to help me, find my connection, spiritually, and just become I don't want to say a better person because that sounds cheesy, but
Well, no,
I would,
I agree. Better person. I mean, I said it's the best version of you. That's what we teach.
yeah.
It's what we teach. 100%, 100% of the time. If it's up to me, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I think that's way attractive
Mhm.
and a better person. But go ahead.
Yeah, so it was finally getting my brain wrapped around, like I said, and I don't remember exactly the wording you used, but I remember the moment that it clicked over. We were talking, and I was just like, huh. And it really just started to sink in at that point. Um, and I think it was shortly thereafter, maybe a couple of days, we might have actually talked, for the first time since before the holidays. And I didn't feel myself not pushing, and it was the easiest little interaction that we'd had since last October when things just fell apart. So like I said, it was just that, and that's when the light clicked for me. Really, it was right around then.
Yeah, I love that. It sounds like what you're saying, and this is very normal, especially for a lot of men that, in the areas of attractiveness, what I call spice, spiritual, physical, intellectual, your character, and your emotional, which is the most important, your emotional attractiveness. I find that the majority of men that like they really want to increase in spiritual attractiveness, and that usually stems from maybe she's a spiritual person and like
Mhm.
maybe you never got that, and then you start stepping into that and you're like, wow, what have I been missing out here? I feel like that actually just super speeds you to being also at the same time emotionally attractive. Hey guys, I want to share something with you. If you're still watching the video at this stage, I'm assuming that you're getting at least some benefit from the content. I want to give you something else. I'm offering right now a free masterclass, and at the end of that masterclass, I'm giving you an opportunity to apply to work with me. The website to do that is denvergriffin.com/masterclass. And if you're enjoying some of this content, please hit that like button and subscribe. I'm posting YouTube videos daily right now to give you free content in order to help you save your marriage. And I want you to be notified as those videos become available in real time. Because
Yes.
it helps you take the steps down the mountain even faster. Like where as you increase in the spiritual attractiveness, it helps your brain see what's really important to your life, and it helps your brain say it's okay to stop working on the relationship. And it seems like that's when you had your aha moment where you really believed it, because for you, I know in your case, it wasn't just like one brick coming down at a time. Like when you started seeing the bricks crumble, when she tested you
Hey.
and knew it was safe, you had like
Mhm.
the whole wall just kind of just fell down. And
Right.
from a spiritual,
Walls of Jericho coming
I
down.
was going to say, from a spiritual perspective, it reminds me of a book in the Bible, Jericho, where they didn't do
Mhm.
anything. They just marched around the wall, and God said, "Shut up while you're marching." And they're like, you know what's so funny though? I think in that scripture, if you believe that, and I do, that
Mhm.
there's a reason that in that story, God said, okay, He didn't just say march around the wall 7 times, it's going to fall. He said, march around the wall 7 times and shut up. Don't talk while you're
Mhm.
marching, because he knew that they were thinking like what every man in my program, their brain is telling them, not working on this is not going to work, but I'm going to do it because I've exhausted everything else. And so I know that the reason God told them to be quiet while you're doing this, because they were all thinking this isn't going to work, and God did not want them to give life to their words. He wanted them
Mhm.
to shut up and stop saying anything about it, stop working on, if he would have allowed them to talk, the whole time they would have been saying, well, what are we going to, we're men and we want to fix it. Like we want to do it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
just like in the wall of Jericho, that wall is not going to fall if you're working to pull it down. You have to stop working on it, and that's what makes it crumble. So I love that you found that analogy. Something that was kind of tied to, because it's kind of part of how this program is based on that belief. And to be honest with you, when I was working on this 7-week module specifically for men, because I used to do couples coaching, and my wife and I
Mhm.
still do that through another company that we own, but that particular scripture, when I read that in my marriage that I'm in now, I had a hiccup, and I couldn't figure out. I had been a marriage coach with 100% success with couples. But fast
Mhm.
forward a few years into a second marriage and getting diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. And basically, the marriage was just over because I became the patient and she became the nurse. Like we still lived together, we were still married, but there was no marriage. I lost my voice and she was my nurse that wiped my butt. Like I was on death row. And when we couldn't figure out how to navigate those waters, and like we even kind of like took a little bit of space apart, and a lot of that was because I was on some medication that was causing me to have like anger issues, and I didn't know what it was. And for a little bit after we said, okay, we need to take a breather, I actually had some resentment in my heart about her actually taking the breather when I'm the one that requested it. And I actually was married to the story that, well, my anger was caused by this medicine, so she shouldn't hold anything against me. Well, you know what? If you have resentment, even if it's not that person's fault, you still have resentment. And if you don't get rid of your resentment, how can they get rid of their resentment? And so I actually read that book that talked about
Mhm.
shut up and march around the walls. And I'm like, that's what I can share with, I can implement this in my own marriage. And so I did. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop working on the marriage. And I'm just going to go back to the man that met my soulmate and fell in love in this new marriage and see what that does. Like, I'm going to stop reaching out to her saying, what else can we do to work on the marriage? And I am telling you, like, holy crap. Same thing happened for me. And I'm sitting there saying, like, I'm actually doing some prayers about that. Like, is this walk, could it be this easy, God, that I'm going to march around the wall, which means I'm just focusing on what can I do to move forward in my life. I don't have cancer anymore. God has gave me a second chance on life. God, this is a wall that's went up, and I'm a marriage coach with couples, and I don't even know how to bring this down. And I stopped working on the wall myself and just focused on me. And I actually was just shocked. And I was documenting, taking notes as I was doing this. And that's where I
Mhm.
came up with this system, and it just worked. And there's other systems out there that tout. I actually reached out to another company where it's a man and his daughter, and they do a coaching program, and they do like a 4-day seminar, like what you're talking about or whatever. And they
Mhm.
had found me online and didn't even want to. I hadn't worked in 2.5 years, and I was struggling, and I was having some financial issues because I couldn't work for 2.5 years, and they wouldn't even help me because they Googled me and saw that I had done marriage coaching. I'm like, are you freaking serious? And I was like, so I'm like, okay, God, I need your help because this is something that I haven't really encountered with clients like this, like, because I had done couples coaching where, at least both people were willing to show up and we had 100% success. But that program that I'm talking about, they tout 70% success. And the way that we do this is, I always say, if it is to be, it's up to me, and it's 100%, 100% of the time. And I think that's why so many men like you, now you've went through the program once, your marriage was
Want to do it again?
your marriage was
Mhm.
restored, you're back together, so you got what you came into
Mhm.
it for, but you're continuing it again because not only are you seeing 100% in the area that you wanted, you're seeing where that can bring 100% in other areas of your life as well. And so I love that. That's so attractive to you
Yeah.
that it made her want to do the same thing. But well,
Well, that whole story idea, like that was a big one for me. I remember you when I first heard about that was in listening in on one of the other one-on-one sessions and realizing that I was telling myself stories and like, how many of us really do, the story that I'm supposed to be, the provider, I'm supposed to be, and especially in the beginning, where like I have to fight. Like if I don't fight, then it means I don't care.
yeah,
And that's not the reality at all, that I learned and how to have that daily immersion to change the stories about myself.
yeah.
Um, and, hearing other people's stories and how they helped. And it just, yeah, like that whole, like, I didn't realize how much I was telling myself a story about who I thought I should be. And that really changed.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that actually helped you change who you are. I mean,
Mhm.
would you agree that now that you've been through this, that in a matter of a couple of months, you literally are a better person and you have become a better version of you, and you even want to take that to the next level in other areas of your life as well?
Yeah, I want to keep changing that narrative for how I move forward and not stop it and let it lie here because there's more work to be done and I know that I can get better.
I love that. I
We
love that.
both.
So that's what we talk about in the program. Your heart's changed to the point that you really want to become, and I think you're already there, but you have a desire and a heart to become the 1% of the 1% of men. And so I not only is that attractive to the woman in your life, that's attractive to other men because they're going to start asking you, like, what's changed in you, dude? Like, I see
Mhm.
that you're working out, your incomes went up, you got a promotion, you started a business, your woman's coming back to you, and like all of a sudden there's a glow on her face all the time. And a lot of that's because, as the emotional safety, what comes with the emotional safety usually is some pretty freaking killer, amazing sex, which even further bonds and strengthens that. But and because that's what it your relationship, even from the sexual attraction, this is a new way of being. So for a woman, a lot of times the sexual attraction, it starts outside of the bedroom. And so the emotional safety that I don't even say increase sexually in your attractiveness, because as you become if you become attractive, more attractive in two of the areas of spice at least, the sexual part of it just happens naturally. It's just the thing that comes next because it's the way that we were created, that's just what naturally occurs. The difference is we're no longer scheduling sex out of, well, we both need to have an orgasm. We're doing sex in the way that this is something that just becomes natural in the way that we love each other and the way that we serve each other. And so resentment and sex usually typically just resolves itself. We don't have to work on that. Emotionally, walk and get down close to her, and she gladly will walk back up that mountain because she knows that it's safe and it's not a hard walk for her because you make it easy for her to walk back up there with you. It becomes just like a peaceful and lovely stroll. And you might decide to stop and make out on a couple of benches on the way up the garden. So, anyway, well, listen, Mark, I appreciate you taking the time to come share with other men in a way that it might help them. And the story is just, I love getting these testimonies, these reviews, because it's so encouraging to me to keep helping men. And I will look forward to seeing you in the Facebook group and can't wait to meet your lovely wife in there.
Absolutely. Can't wait to start the next program, man. Thank you guys so much for getting us, back together and really making us stronger and better together than I think we were before. Really.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to serve you and your family. And hopefully this is something that is left, for a lifelong of legacy to other people as well. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.
Have one.
You too. Bye.